In this episode, Golden and I discuss Ghostbusters Afterlife. Full speed ahead.
The Omega Beam. Full power. The Omega Beam.
Welcome to the Omega Beam number 153. I'm your host, Oren Merton. The original Ghostbusters movie came out in 1984 and was a phenomenon. It was a great movie, it was hilarious, and it was a huge hit. The second one came out in 1989, and it was also fun. Not quite to the level of the first, though. So they kept talking about making a third in that series, and there were a lot of false starts and stops over the decades. And finally, in 2016, they tried to reboot Ghostbusters with an all-female team, and that didn't really take off. So here we are in 2021, and they finally made that third movie in the original storyline, Ghostbusters Afterlife. This movie kind of pretends the reboot never happens, and it goes right back to the first movie for its plot points. But it takes place a couple generations later. So with most of our movie discussions, the first few minutes are going to be spoiler-free, and we'll warn you before we get into the real spoilers in case you haven't seen it yet. So let's go. I am here with Golden to talk about Ghostbusters Afterlife, the latest Ghostbusters movie directed by the son of the original director. And what did you think? We'll go spoiler-free first, and then spoilers.
I thought it was a lot of fun. I think that it definitely had the heart and soul of the original.
I think, yeah, I agree. And I think this one, it kind of had a thankless task in the sense that the first one was really lightning in a bottle. It was sort of out of nowhere, and it kind of dabbled in some of the elements of spooky movies and scary movies, but then turned it into a comedy that was literally laugh a minute. And they had tried to capture that with Ghostbusters 2, which was a good movie, but not nearly up to the level of the first. And then they did a reboot recently, and that wasn't up to the level. So it was not an easy task to try and match the first one. And I think that this one was very smart in that it didn't try to be Ghostbusters 1. As much as it did tickle the nostalgia bone quite a bit for those who have seen the first one, it has a different tone, and it is its own movie. But I think it succeeds incredibly well in the kind of movie that it is trying to be, while being incredibly faithful and honoring the first one very well. And that was not an easy job. So hats off to the writers, the director, the cast, everybody.
And they did a good job with tying in why he ended up there.
Yeah.
Why he ended up in this small town.
In Oklahoma.
And why there would be even a second movie.
Right. Third movie in that timeline. Yeah.
If we're ignoring the female cast.
We are. Well, that was a reboot. That was its own thing. And it had moments, and it had characters that were fun, but it wasn't this. I think that they did do a great job of sort of justifying, if you will, why they were going to do this one. And it was really good. And one thing this had that the others didn't, and again, I'm keeping it very vague. You probably, for those of you who've been following this movie, you may have already read something to this effect, but there are parts of this movie that, in addition to being fun, in addition to being sort of jump scares, there's parts that are legitimately moving in this. And that's not an easy thing to achieve in this kind of a light movie, but it does, and it does incredibly well.
It is a light movie, but it has its gravity.
It does, and it feels justified. Nothing is tacked on to sort of, okay, and now we're going to throw in a needless joke because there hasn't been a joke in a while. Okay, now we're going to throw in a big special effects set piece because we haven't in a while. Now we're going to throw in something, to tug at the heartstrings just because we haven't in a while. There's none of that. Everything is earned. Everything makes sense. And it succeeds. It succeeds on all levels.
And the cast is excellent.
Yes, this is just another movie that goes to prove that it is simply not possible for Paul Rudd to be anything but charming in any part he plays. He's just absolutely heartwarmingly charming in this, as well as everything. But I thought he made a fantastic geology.
Well, he was just a summer school teacher.
No, I think he was a regular...
he was a regular teacher, but
right,
for
here,
this,
he's just teaching summer school for the kids because they end up in this town in Oklahoma. I think Somerville was what it was called.
And Logan Kim, his podcast was...
Right, yeah.
Was just absolutely another little charming actor.
Absolutely. And I thought the younger Ghostbusters, if you will, were fantastic. I've loved... I'm going to get his name wrong.
Finn Wolfhard?
Finn Wolfhard. I've loved him since Stranger Things, and I've seen him in, obviously, other things since. I think he is excellent.
I am guessing that you actually really like the actress that played Phoebe as well.
I've seen her before.
You've seen her before in quite a few things.
Probably. She looked very familiar.
Yeah, you have seen her before as a young Carol Danvers.
Oh, right.
She's also a recurring role in Young Sheldon. She's done a lot.
She was a young Carol. She wouldn't have been Carol, right?
Carol in the scenes, the flashbacks. She's one of the young Carol Danvers.
Oh, that played Phoebe. Oh, you're right.
Played Phoebe.
Yeah,
and she's also young Sabrina.
I didn't see it. Oh, interesting. Nice.
Yeah, no, she's for someone who is
for someone that young. She seems pretty storied.
She's 15 years old, and interestingly enough, ready for this? Glad you're sitting down. She's a half-inch taller than I am.
Half-inch taller than you. Okay. I'll alert the media. No, that's nice. And
it gives a very weird perspective when you go to see a movie, and this is a little kid running around when she's actually, 15 years old.
Right.
But little kid running around, and that kid is actually taller than you are. Not by much.
She's one of those things.
She's 4'11", but she has quite a filmography already.
Yeah, good for her. I also was pretty sure I recognized the girl who played, and I'm forgetting the character's
Lucky?
name. Was that her name?
His love interest?
Yeah.
Yes, Lucky.
Lucky. She
even had a necklace that said Lucky.
She looked familiar as well, but again, I didn't know in what. But I thought I might have seen her somewhere in another production here or there.
She actually has not done as much. Where the actress that plays Phoebe has had like 45 different things that she's done.
Yeah, that's fun.
She has not done very much.
Okay. Anything that we've seen?
I don't think anything that you would have seen.
Okay. Maybe I saw it in a trailer or something.
Maybe.
Anyway, ending the spoiler-free section, this is a good movie. If you liked the first one, you will enjoy this one. If you haven't seen the first one, you can see this one without knowing the first one. It's just that a lot of the nostalgia stuff will just be, oh, this ties it back to their, grandparents or whatever. And you won't remember their grandparents in that movie from the 80s. But it still works. There's nothing that requires you to know what happened in the 80s movie. Everything everything you need to know is spoken. So you don't need to worry about that. Although, to be honest, I'm not sure how many people at this point, given television and streaming and everything, have not seen the original 1984 Ghostbusters. But if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend you do. It holds up and it's funny. Even some of the, the effects are not, the most modern 2021 CGI. But
they're still fun.
They're still good.
Yeah, they're still fun.
Especially because it's a comedy. So you're not expecting it to be Star Trek, Star Wars level of photorealism. A little cartooniness in a comedy is fine. It works. It's part of the fun. So, and the special effects in this one were, of course, top-notch, excellent, state-of-the-art. Yeah, it's definitely worth the watch.
And Annie Potts is also in Young Sheldon, so there are two actors and actresses from that. And Bob Gunton was the ghost farmer.
Aww.
That's who they had stand in.
Oh, that's nice.
It's nice for him to play a role that, he's not hated. Because I think we all still hate him from Shawshank Redemption.
That's interesting.
And you did recognize J.K. Simmons.
Yeah.
So it has a very fun cast. The special effects are well done. It's very well paced. It has its elements of that, because you don't want them to. I thought it was very well thought out, and the story wasn't very thin. It wasn't flimsy.
Yeah,
there was a lot of thought to it.
It was a good story. It held together very well. So I'm gonna get into some spoilers. So 3, 2, 1 spoilers. Spoiler time.
I'm just amazed that they can make McKenna Grace look that young. Phoebe.
Oh yeah.
I mean, she does a wonderful job playing a really young girl.
Well, her character's supposed to be 12, I think. I think they said her character, because at one point she's talking to Gozer, and she says, "Are you ready to die?" And he says, "No, I'm 12."
Yeah, but still, for a 15-year-old who can look much older.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they did do a good job. And I think...
Wolfhard or Wolford.
Yeah, I think he was even playing younger.
Oh, yeah.
Because his character was supposed...
He's 19.
Yeah, his character was supposed to be 15, and he's really 19. But, again, I thought they did really well. And that's something I have to give... You'd already talked about the script, but I think it felt... the relationships between the young protagonists and even just the town folk, it felt legit. I mean, it didn't feel like these are 60-year-old men writing kids. It felt like a real interaction between people who are young. And so kudos to the script writers for getting that right, and kudos to the actors for playing off.
Podcast seeking out the other oddball. I mean,
right.
I think exactly what the oddballs do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to quote other people's podcasts, but I know that on Fat Man Beyond, both I think Mark Bernardin and Kevin Smith were kind of commenting on the kind of almost Goonies energy of the protagonists, the young protagonists, and I can see that because it was kind of oddballs joining together and doing the important thing, or at least the exciting thing. Though in this case, it was the important thing. And I like how they redeemed, if you will, Spengler from when we begin the movie. This is not, he didn't need being redeemed from the 80s movies. But this movie begins kind of with his daughter being like, forget that guy.
Yeah, he left her.
Yeah, and not getting it she just didn't want to deal. It wasn't even that she was looking for the answer. She wasn't looking for the answer. She had her life, and he wasn't in it. And, he could go jump off a cliff.
Yeah, from her perspective, he's just...
Yeah, he abandoned her.
He abandoned them.
He needed a father, and she needed a father, and he was gone. And by the end of the movie, in a scene that I will admit had me tearing up, it's all sort of resolved in a way that did not feel forced, that felt very natural, and was also very satisfying, I felt.
I do too. I thought it was really well done.
I think that it was nice that all the original cast, living original cast, it was dedicated to Harold Ramis, and in many ways, it was a love letter to him. And he obviously wasn't there. They had to, like you already mentioned, they got someone to stand in for him. But I think that all the original cast coming back.
We're missing one.
Oh, right.
Rick
Moranis. But he's out of acting, isn't he? I believe he left acting almost entirely.
But still, I'm still going to,
Yeah. I think he showed up in in one of Ryan Reynolds' mobile phone commercials.
Cricket, wireless, yeah.
But I thought it was great that the others were all willing to throw it in. Even Sigourney Weaver, whose character had no part in this, they still managed to throw her in just as a friend.
Stay around for the end credits. That's all I'll say on that one. There are 2 end credit scenes.
There are 2 end credit scenes.
One towards the beginning of the credits and one at the very end of the credits.
Right. And as you might imagine, see, I like how they did it. Obviously, all the Marvel movies were used to the fact that they have end credit scenes that set up the next thing. But what I thought was nice about the final end credit scene is if they do more, it could be a setup. But if they don't, it was just a wonderful capstone.
Yes.
So I like...
Speaking of, the original cast, I don't think it would be a real Ghostbusters movie without the Stay Puffed Marshmallow Man.
Yeah.
Or Marshmallow Men. Or Marshmallow Army.
Exactly. I think that's one of the strengths. They're calling this movie a comedy, but the truth is it's got jokes, But it's not a comedy in the same way that the original was literally nonstop smiles and laughter. This is more of a drama that has elements that are very funny in it. And one of the things they did really well, and this goes back to number one, the nostalgia, and then, of course, the comedy, is how they quote some of the things that happened in the first one in a new and novel way. So just like you pointed out, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is, kind of a major set piece in the original, and they don't redo it here, but they echo it in a very funny way that made a couple scenes, in my opinion.
I gotta love them, one of them wanting to be a s'more. Melt the chocolate over me. Oh, yay, a chocolatey blanket. And just, poking things through them and them lighting each other on fire.
Well, marshmallows may not have the highest IQ or survival instinct. I don't know. I've never been a marshmallow, so I can't be sure.
I think honestly, this army of Stay Puft Marshmallow Men were more dangerous than the big one.
Maybe. Although the big one, I think, did smack some buildings or something. Yeah. So the big one did have a little bit more power. I mean, one of the little ones you see doing a little mischief. I mean, it took a bite out of a finger.
Oh no, there's a lot of mischief. Them taking apart one of the.
Yeah, that's right. They were getting into
the power packs,
right?
Or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, they weren't hurting.
Sorry for those diehard Ghostbusters fans
I don't
know exactly what the equipments are called.
Right, yeah. It's fun. But yeah, I mean, it was done very well. Everything they decided to bring back in a nod to the original movie was done differently, was done freshly.
The Gozer story is still there.
Right.
That in itself is the same.
Right.
You need the gatekeeper, you need the keymaster.
Yep.
In order for Gozer to come. And so that is almost exactly the same. But what you find out is that last time when they defeated Gozer, it really wasn't final.
Right.
There had to be something else done to be able to contain Gozer.
Right. And they may go on to new stories, and we'll see. We'll see if they want to do it or not. But if this is the beginning of a new team, it's a great new team. And if it's not, then this was just a wonderful capstone on the first Ghostbuster movie. Well, and Ghostbusters 2. This is that Ghostbusters 1 and 2 continuity.
I very much enjoyed it, and I look forward to when it's available and we can watch it at home as well.
Yeah, absolutely. This was one of the occasions in which we went to a theater, just like with Black Widow.
Yes, and that in itself was a very interesting experience because for Black Widow, we rented the theater. We invited some friends.
Right.
And this time we got invited for a friend's birthday. The crowd was a little bit more gregarious all the way through the movie.
That's a very nice way to say it. Yes, they were. They
definitely wanted to, when the car came up, they had their moments. They started some of the Ghostbusters theme in the middle of the movie.
Yeah, a little bit louder crowd, and the energy, on the one hand, the energy is contagious. On the other hand, I am glad that we tend to sit, a little bit isolated, so when we wanted to concentrate on the movie, it wasn't difficult. Well, thank you, Golden.
You're welcome.
And that's it for this episode. You can find the show notes at theomegabeam.com/153. If you like this episode, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Your reviews help people who like this stuff find our podcast. If you have any comments or suggestions, please drop us a line at info@theomegabeam.com. Be good to yourselves and each other, and we'll catch you next time.
The Omega Beam. Full stop.